welcome to Adobe Live. I'm your host today, Danielle Morimoto, and we have a special guest. Liz Wells is with us.
Hello, I'm Liz Wells. I'm a senior UX designer at Stink Studios in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, so we're super excited to have her here. She'll be designing live in Adobe XD, looking at taking a newsletter that you have and making it an editorial website. So we're excited to be going through XD today. Let us know and say hi in the chat where you guys are joining from. We're streaming live from San Francisco, and we'd love to get to know where you all are. We have an awesome agenda that we have going on for the entire week, and Liz is going to be with us for the next day, and so we'll be streaming at the same time. But just to give you a sense, we had the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge earlier this morning with Kathleen, and then before this we had hand lettering with Ari, and then the XD Daily Creative Challenge. Liz is here to talk through XD workflows and pro tips, and then afterwards there's the Daily Creative Challenge for Illustrator. So a whole lot going on the stream all day today. And then, like I said, this is just day one with Liz, and we'll have her back again tomorrow to talk about all the pro tips and good stuff in XD. So I see we have some people tuning in. Anthony from Puerto Rico, Phil, Brooklyn, Emmy in Netherlands. So hi everybody, thanks for joining. Make sure that you're staying active in the chat today. We have a chat and win, so 30 minutes in, if you're engaging in the chat, asking questions, all of that good stuff, you'll have a chance to win 100 free Sticker Mule stickers. So a lot of goodness. I didn't realize we have a lot of stuff here. But yeah, we have the Sticker Mule winner that we'll announce in 30 minutes, and then later today, we also have portfolio reviews, so make sure that you head on over to Discord, and if you send in your portfolio to #portfolio-review in the channel, we will be able to give you some feedback and take a look and preview your portfolio for everybody to see. So stay tuned for all of that. Yeah, we have, let's see, a couple more people excited about the Sticker Mule stickers. Sienna, Gilbert, hello everyone, thank you for joining. Liz is gonna go ahead and introduce herself, but right before she does, I just wanna say, be active in the chat. We're here for the next 2 hours to talk with all of you, and so if you have questions about what you're seeing in XD, about the tool, about like process or career questions, anything like that, feel free to ask away. We're here to talk to you guys. So with that, Liz, if you wanna go ahead and intro yourself a little bit more.
So I made a whole XD file for this, but so first, I'm Liz, I'm a senior UX designer. I'm currently at Stink Studios in Brooklyn. I also am the co-founder and designer at Desk Lunch, which I'll go into more detail later because that's what my little website's gonna be about today. And I graduated from Rochester Institute of Technology in graphic design. So I just wanted to like share some fun stuff, just, we can talk about in the chat. I'm currently reading Severance by Ling Ma, which I really recommend. I'm only in the beginning, but it's basically an apocalyptic story about a woman that lives in New York. So it's like a little too relatable right now.
I was gonna say,
So I'm like taking notes. I'm like, okay, like let's get some practice in. But also I'm currently listening to, these are currently my favorite podcasts, Reply All, because it's about internet culture, and that's super important as someone who makes stuff for the internet. My Brother and Me, because it's about 3 silly boys, and You're Wrong About, because it's a great historical pop culture podcast. And then also, I keep telling everyone about this, but I'm currently playing Stardew Valley. It is so relaxing, and my farm is beautiful. I just got a pig, and I named him Turnup, and I'm just currently really thriving in my digital life.
Stardew Valley. I haven't heard of it. I have to check it out.
I'm playing on the Switch, so it's been, yeah.
Gosh, okay. Another reason I should get a Switch.
Oh my God. Okay, we'll
That's
talk
my
after.
excuse, yeah.
Cool, so I made a little project brief for this bad boy.
Love how it's in XD.
Yeah, I was like, let's just make it all easy. I just want everything in one place, but I'm gonna be talking about Desk Lunch, which, like I said, is my newsletter that I co-run with my friend Katie Puccio. Okay, sorry, I see someone said Animal Crossing is greater than Stardew Valley. Okay, we will have to talk about this after the chat. But yeah, this is important. So Desk Lunch is a community for creative people of marginalized genders. Since 2018, we've been publishing a weekly newsletter featuring stories from the community and around the world. It's so we hit our 2-year anniversary last month, which is super exciting.
Nice.
And every week we have a different person sharing their story. So it could be an essay, a cartoon, anything that they feel appropriate to share. Our mission is to promote equality by celebrating stories and that go unheard. So these are people that maybe this is their first time sharing stories about the workplace or about their gender or anything like that. So it's really nice to give a platform. So this is the newsletter. This was our original brand that we started out with. Something that I was really careful about is I wanted something to not look super feminine, because this is for folks of all marginalized genders. I didn't want it to be super pink and all that, so I wanted something a bit tougher. But then throughout the years, I did a rebrand and I wanted something that had some hard soft to it. And I just wanted something a bit more mature, because we've grown up. We've been around for 2 years. You know, we're not a baby anymore, we're a toddler. And we also have social media where we post our issues from MailChimp every week, and we've hosted events. So what's left? We don't have a website right now. We have a simple landing page where it just tells the story about what we are and has a newsletter capture, but we don't have more than that. It's mostly because I've been lazy and haven't had time to design one, so I thought, why don't we jump in right now?
Yeah, and it's cool to hear you talk about like the principles that you kind of wanted to have, and like thinking about how you would want something to look more feminine or less feminine, like how you look at type or color in order to do those things. So like it's interesting to see also like the beginning version versus like where you are now.
Yeah, it definitely grew from talking to our community and also just like learning from doing it for so long. So our goals for the website is to bring in new readers, so to teach them out what is Desk Lunch, subscribe to the newsletter, and read past issues. But for returning readers, read those past issues that maybe got lost in their inbox, or they want to share with a friend and send a URL to, or submit their story. We have a Google form where people can submit their story to us, and we will help them publish with us. So what's next? Since this is an existing thing, I already have a style guide set up, so we can go through that. I can talk about some theory around the color and the type, and then make a sitemap. So I've already done some sketches for the site and the sitemap that we can talk about, and collect some references and start designing.
Yes. Sounds really good.
So everything is in this one big file I made, which I like doing this also for like work projects as well, because I think it's just really helpful to have everything in one spot, and especially when you hand off to developers and other designers, it's really just handy to have everything in one place. So what I like to call the brand zone in here, we have colors, logos, and then the social assets, because since this is something that exists on social already and in MailChimp, we have it. So with the colors, my nails kind of match it today, but
Yes. I did not notice that earlier.
It's like sweet. Part of the grand plan, but so with the colors, I just wanted a mix of very gender neutral colors. I didn't want to go full millennial pink. I wanted something a bit more expansive and also just would relate well to the images that we were pulling from, so they're not too loud. And then as for the logo, I wanted a mix of like hard and soft, so I'm using OGG and GT America. GT America is one of my favorite typefaces, so I wanted to
slide that in.
Yeah. I was like, this is great, so let's just get in here. But I wanted that mix of like pulling from where we were in the beginning of very loud and like strong, but then also we wanted something with a bit softer edge, just kind of to appeal to, you know, more than just women, but also non-binary folks as well. Then we got our share cards. Something I like to play with is like working with the corners, how can we put an asset here and then drop in the logo and how it can separate. And kind of I was thinking like, oh, this would lend really nicely to the landing page on the site, and like how can we play with this type style in a web way and also in motion as well. So that's some thoughts on the branding. So typically, when I do projects, I like to sketch first. It kind of reminds me of when you're back in school and you write an essay by hand and then you type it into the computer, and between like handwriting it and typing it, you kind of edit things out because you're like, oh, ugh, yikes, like I didn't want to do that. So I always start by sketching out my sitemaps and my sites, just because it just helps me kind of get my first thoughts out. And then when I make it digital, I make some edits in too. So it's kind of gone through 2 passes of revisions and thought processes.
Let's take a look at those.
So we got a GoPro here, which is like the most sporty thing my design work has ever been near. So watch out.
There we go.
So I created, oh wow, this is.
And this is when your nails come in really handy too.
Anyway, so I'm gonna use a pen to point. So I sketched out a homepage based on what I think would make sense for this and based off our user groups, the new users and the returning users. So first we have our homepage where we would just have a hero, then image that's kind of like our brand image, logo, and tagline to introduce people to what Desk Lunch is and give them a quick synopsis, and then a sign up form, which is obviously most important because we want those emails. Next we have issues. So this is all the past issues that have already launched. We would have page title and then a sorting by feature just because we hit our 100th issue either next week or this week.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. So 100 is a lot to scroll through. So let's make it easy for users to get through it. So I'm thinking that there should be some sort by feature by name or by issue number, and then a filter. So since I wrote this, I put some thoughts around what the filter item should be. Katie, who is my co-founder of this, we sat down and we wrote out some filter ideas based on the common themes that have come up in all the issues. Because since people are talking about their lives, there's a lot of different themes going on. So we wanted to bucket them in key groups. And then issue thumbnail. So breaking it out with the issue number, the issue name, and also the author. From there, I really had a hard time writing this, but I meant to write issue detail page where it would have the issue title, number, and author, the image that was used for the issue body copy, the author bio, the art credit, and then thinking maybe some sort of next previous situation. But then also when I was sketching it out, I was thinking, what if there's a way to link back to the tagging structure that we had before?
So we have a good question actually in the chat about from Emmy about like how do you determine what is relevant for the user? So like you're going through like all the different pieces you're thinking you're going to include. Like how do you kind of determine what those things are?
Yeah, so I figure out what the user needs are. So just jumping back to here. So just a reminder for new users, we want to learn about Desk Lunch, subscribe, and read. So why we determine that's relevant for new users is we just wanted to start with general education. So I think understanding what those users need and how you determine that is either through research. Obviously, since this is just a quick site, the research was really just looking at what I already knew from the community. But on a bigger site, it might be doing user interviews and doing research and figuring out what are common themes that users look for. So since this is a simple site, learning and subscribing and reading are the key actions and the key like CTAs that we want people to do. And then since we know returning readers already are subscribed, we remove that from their kind of needs list and replace it with submit their story because they're more engaged with the community, so they're more likely to submit their story.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thanks, Emmy, for sending it in. And yeah, I feel like research is definitely a big part at like Adobe too, and like at the beginning stages, like dependent on the project, you might have more or less time to do certain phases in a design process, but research is definitely part of that process. And whether it's like gathering previous research or just like testing as you're going along and getting user feedback or like seeing where your numbers are of like how many people are coming to the page, how many people are clicking here, is super helpful to like determining how you want to iterate on the design and like what's working or not.
Yeah, and I think like size of research like can totally range on like the product. Like if you're just doing like a little site, like talking to your friends and family and like getting people from the community to give you research and thoughts is helpful. But if you're working on a huge product that millions of people are going to use, your research is going to be so much more expansive and like all-encompassing.
Totally.
And then going to About page. So this is just simple of how we got started, why we're doing this, and all of that. And then I like to always, on a sitemap, kind of off to the side, write what's in the nav and what's in the footer, just so when you're designing it, you're not like, oh, like forgot about that footer, what are we gonna put in here? So for the nav, we're just gonna have the logo that links to the homepage, issues and about, since those are our two main pages. And then in the footer, we're gonna have the sign up form and the email to submit your story, social links, and then credits, just so people know who's making this and where, how to get in touch with us. Cool. So that goes into sketches, or wireframe sketches. So I like to keep these high level when I'm sketching, so I don't actually put real copy in or anything like that. I just wanted to marker it out. like quick plug, I use like the Coptic markers because they are so nice because they're very like watercolory and you can like really layer over each other and you can still write over it, which is really helpful if you have notes or if you actually want to write in content with a pen. So up here, I'm imagining the logo is in the top left, nothing super revolutionary, and then nav items in the right. And then up here, kind of bringing in the design system that I was mentioning earlier for the MailChimp assets of having the logo kind of split up and then having the asset there and then the description below, and then ending with the footer of the sign up form and then that contact information. Next, on the issue page, something I was thinking about is since color is such a big part of Desk Lunch, how can we bring it in the thumbnails? Since we also have so many thumbnails, how do we do it in a way that's not overwhelming so you're not scrolling forever, but also it kind of brings in just kind of something more exciting and different. So up here we have the page title and then the filter system that I've been playing with. And then what if we did thumbnails as just a strip of color with the issue number, the title, and the author, and then something could come up on hover that revealed more about it, and then ending with the footer.
And so do you always start with like sketches first for your wireframes? And
I like to, if I have time. Obviously, like sometimes you just gotta go in and like make something, but if I have time, I like to do that, or do it on a whiteboard, because in our office we have a big whiteboard that we can work from, just because you feel less precious when you're sketching and you feel like you can make more mistakes, while when you're in the program, you feel like you kind of have to be more done. It has to feel more final.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah.
a good point. I'm curious, in the chat, let us know if you guys typically sketch first or if you head straight into like your tool on the computer to make your sketches. Just kind of curious. I know everyone's process is a little bit different. I definitely agree, like my original sketches are messy. Like I'm like crossing, I try like a couple different things for every page and it's kind of crazy. I saw Andreas, thanks for joining us in the chat. A couple other people giving some love to the pens.
They're so good. I've like, oh my, the amount of money I've spent on these pens is stupid, but like they're the best ones I've found for this, because also like the layering is nice, and even though like gray is super boring, whatever, it's, you know, I'm a UX designer, I live in a world of gray, it just like helps really show hierarchy, and like you can build systems using the grays and like showing text and image in a clear way. Also, like I've noticed clients respond well to it because it just feels less precious and they feel like they can add feedback without being like, but if I move the like squares, you're gonna mess it up. It's like, no, it's a piece of paper. Like, it's fine. You can do
and
that.
I think like the nice thing, I think we have like a couple people saying, gotta get those ideas out, like sketching first. I know Tim uses the Apple Pencil to sketch first. Is like doing low fidelity, like we talk about like low fidelity versus high fidelity. Like low fidelity, you have like gray boxes and like fake text, like you just have lines and stuff. I think also helps people if you are gonna show the design so that they know this isn't like a final finished thing and you can kind of talk about it in that form, versus people can get really focused on like, but that color or that font or that photo, and you're like, wait, like I'm not even trying to talk about that yet.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have the about page, just a simple page title, image, body copy, nothing crazy going on here, and then getting into the issue detail. So starting with the issue number and title, the issue image, and then going into body copy. I was starting to think like, do we want to have pull quotes coming from it, and then ending with the author info next and previous. But then also I started second guessing myself, which, you know, that's life. But then going through and adding notes of, do we want to add issue tags? If so, should we put them at the top or at the bottom? And how should that work? So I think that's going to come out more in design. So I see Long Vu, who's one of my coworkers, ask where I get my nails done. Hi, Long. I got these done in Manhattan. Yeah, but I like Akiko nails in Lower East Side, but I missed my appointment, so I didn't get them done there.
Thanks, Long.
Thanks, Long. Thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe below.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's get going in here. Goodbye, GoPro. We had a great time together.
It's been wonderful. It was
take
mainly
you
good
skiing.
for the nail close-up moment.
Yeah, exactly.
But just a quick reminder for those of you who are just tuning in, we have the Chat and Win countdown that is starting to happen. I'm like slowly pointing because it's the opposite. So that chat countdown is happening. So make sure that you're asking questions and engaging with Liz and myself. And Liz is going to be designing in XD this newsletter. So excited to get started.
Yeah, so what I like to do, as I mentioned, is I want to start doing a sitemap. So since I already have one sketched out, I want to bring it into the digital form to just get that done. So something I did after working at Stink is I created a UX kit of different sitemaps and user flows and other things that I've created throughout the years and just kind of templatize them so it's easier to, when you start a new project, to do that. So doing things like user flows and breaking it down between like, this is a detailed user flow while this is a high-level user flow, and then different types of sitemaps. This has been really helpful for me because you don't want to remake a sitemap template every time you're making a sitemap because that's ridiculous. So I'm just going to snag one of these bad boys and take it over to my XD file. Boop. Okay. Cool. So let's just remove some stuff that we don't need because this is a simple sitemap. So first we have the home page.
And we were talking about this earlier. Sienna in the chat just said, I love the Totoro sticker on your laptop. Thank you. But we were just talking about Miyazaki right before
Yeah,
this.
because my desktop is from Spirited Away, and I find it the most relaxing scene is when she's on the train and looking out the window, and this house just looks so nice. Like, can I just live here and just get all my stuff delivered by drone? Maybe, but this seems lovely, and I want to be there. So we have the home page, and then let's add some items. So we have the hero, and then within the hero we have, we have the image, logo, and tagline, and then we end on sign up form. And then we can make this little guy a little smaller. Boop. So, and then we can, so I have like different things kind of pre-made in here because I know I might need them. So like whenever I represent a drop down, I do this dotted line because it's not an actual page, it's not an actual destination, and then add the arrow just so it's really clear that the user would be dropping down in the nav. But we don't have that here, so I don't need that, but I just wanted to explain why that is the way it is. And then I have this yellow line that I created for when things don't directly link to each other. So maybe this secondary page might have an embedded link that goes to this other secondary page. And then when I do this thing that's kind of like stacked letters, that means it's a templated page, so like a detail page would have that. So our issue page would have that, for example, since that is a templated page that would repeat multiple times. So we have page title, sort by name and issue number, filter, issue thumbnail.
I like Chance coming in the chat, the sequel, Droned Away from Spirited Away, because you're gonna have that drone.
Oh, please.
Clever. I like it.
I too want to turn into a big baby. So since y'all are talking about Animal Crossing versus Stardew Valley, like truth's out, I've actually never played a Animal Crossing game before. I pre-ordered the new one. So Stardew Valley is like my first foray into that. Okay, Robert is one of my coworkers as well. Wow. Wow, guys.
I'm glad they're all tuning in.
I know, we stan. So Stardew Valley is my first foray into this like farming, like, you know, genre, because I grew up playing Sims, and RuneScape. So this is, I'm just like really excited to like dig into this like lifestyle that I'm about
So
to.
the first one that you dug into, you have to give enough time
Yes.
directly into that one before you move on. I get it. Tim asked a question in the chat around what you're working on. Is there a template for this sitemap that you kind
So
of
this is what I made this from scratch. So this is a Liz template.
This is a Liz original.
Yeah, so my coworker Maggie, she's the director of UX at Stink, and her and I we created this together, and after making many versions of these for clients, we've kind of simplified them and like templatized them across.
Nice. And I feel like you can easily also like create your own. I think there are templates online, you know, for wireframe, like for templates like this. And then it's also like a great way to just start to get a sense of how everything's going to stay connected. Like some people will go off and start to build, you know, one-off pages, which is also, you know, everyone has their own process, but it's interesting to see, you know, you're starting kind of from this form of just like all the content, how it's going to be on every page. Yeah, and Chelsea, my good friend Chelsea is on here, but looked up. I can't believe Spirited Away is coming on Netflix. I'm actually really excited.
Oh.
What the people really need to know.
Honestly?
I really needed to know that, actually.
That's, I mean, yeah. Cool. Oops. What's your favorite Miyazaki film?
Oh, what a question. Well, so I have 2 Miyazaki stickers on my computer. I'm like I have, wrong side. This one, which is from Princess Mononoke, which I really like. I like that movie. And then Totoro was just a classic when I was growing up. And I feel like the 2 I watched the most were Kiki's Delivery Service. And Totoro.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I too want to live in a baker's attic and just eat pancakes.
Like that's what you take away from it. But it's true, yeah.
I want the Miyazaki diet, which is like fried eggs.
I mean, the food always looks really good. Yeah. I'm waiting. We talked about, I'm trying to get a new laptop, and so I'm saving all my really good stickers for my new laptop. So I have one that's Totoro in like a bowl of food type of thing, like chili. Whoa. It's gonna be great. So stay tuned for that, because it's gonna be amazing.
All right, so since this is a tiny little sitemap guy, we don't need all this stuff. We can simplify it. Okay. Is this one line? Ooh. You know when like you do little shortcuts and you're like, I'm just gonna group these 2 things together and not actually connect them? I don't know. I'm like really like, sometimes because I know people won't look at my files in detail, I get like really gnarly with like how I organize things, and then I get super self-conscious, and then I go back in and like name all my files. I'm just like chaotic a little bit sometimes because I have to work so quickly, and I'm like, okay, I think this is good, but then I like look back and I'm like, I'm a monster. Like I can't do this.
Everyone definitely has a different process for how they do file management, for sure. Like it was interesting to see your other file too, like titling everything, because the things you never know when you're gonna need to like share files with other people, right. And like when they're gonna have to come in and you can't just explain it and sit down with them. You just want to hand them a file and let them know. Like being able to organize, like this is, you know, the home section, you have different screens, or like this is, you know, the iPad versions versus the
right.
mobile, whatever it might be. But yeah, and someone was asking like kind of what it was you were working on again in the chat. Gilbert was wondering, is it a flow chart or what? Liz is kind of going through and just for every different type of page, like kind of putting what type of content would go on there and how it would connect to the entire system of the design that she'll be working on.
So this is very simple. Since there's not a lot of since there's not a lot of subpages, it's very top level, there's not a lot of complications. Usually I would have like arrows pointing like, oh, it's clear that you can go this way only. But since this site is it's simple, it's not like you hit any dead ends, I'm not gonna include that here. But like there's been times where I've worked on sites where the flow is like the user is forced through something and they can't go back to maybe like a landing page or like some sort of state that isn't permanent. Putting arrows has really helped them to understand like the actual flow of the user. So it almost doubles as like a user flow as well, if like you don't need to do like a proper, like full written out, like almost scripted one.
Cool. And on that note, we are actually at time for the Chat and Win countdown. So make sure that if you're not already on Behance, head over to Behance. Make sure that you're active in the chat. And this section is about to be Chat and Win. All right, so we are back. This is the Chat and Win. So make sure that you're active in the chat. I know Tim had already asked that question of what's your favorite Studio Ghibli character, since we've been talking about that a lot. So let us know in the chat. We have Cat Bus, classic. That's coming through. I don't know if you have a favorite or not.
I mean, oh man, okay, stressful. Oh, I do
Not too much
like,
pressure.
I do like the stoplight, or the light in Spirited Away that guides her to the
that's a good
the
answer.
light that just hopping along, because like he just has one job and he does it well, and I really appreciate that.
The simple things. I do like that. Yeah, I like that someone likes Princess Mononoke. I think Princess Mononoke is a boss, total boss. I also think though, like, Totoro's just adorable. I think they're just like the chunkiest, cutest little things ever. Ooh, Porco Rosso. That's like a throwback to one of the like original ones. Cool. Well, we do have our winner for the Chat and Win today. So Grace, congratulations. You are the winner of 100 free Sticker Mule stickers. So someone from the team here at Adobe.
Grace.
Do you know who Grace is? Oh, shoot. Well, congrats. It's not rigged, I swear. No. Is it someone you work with?
She's a friend, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm glad that they tuned in. Someone from Adobe here, we're going to go ahead and they'll message you directly with how you can claim your prize. And yeah, for the rest of you, do not be too sad if you did not win today's Chat and Win. We do have a code here that you can use. So head on over to Sticker Mule and you'll still get a great discount. And we will be back again tomorrow. Like I said before, Liz will be with us from 12 to 2 again tomorrow, same time. So we'll have another Chat and Win portion, so you'll have another chance to win. But yeah, congratulations, Grace. That's awesome.
Cool, so the sitemap's in a good spot. So something I like to do is once the sitemap is in a good spot, is I actually like to move things into where I'll be working into the web, the designs. I like to put the different modules next to the page that I'm working on, just so I have a list of what I need to include instead of scrolling back up and scrolling back down. Like, come on, I don't have all that time. So that's something I like to do to organize. So yeah, and then in here, as you'll see, a little spoiler ahead, I pulled some assets that I'm gonna use. So this is an example of an issue written by Jenny Wen, who is a designer in San Francisco, actually. She wrote about finding her voice again. And then also one of my favorites is Jinjin's son. She actually works at Adobe in New York. And she did this amazing comic about crying at work. So I just wanted to take two issues that had different content types so I can show how the issue detail page would look with two different content types. So just kind of figuring out how that would scale.
It's interesting that you pull like the piece from your flow next to the thing. I am similar in that I like if I've sketched on a whiteboard and like have a photo of it or something,
Yes.
actually pull it in and put it like directly near like the artboard that I'm working on in XD, just because it's so much nicer to have that content like directly next to it. And I delete it later, but it's just like for reference to have my sketches right near what I'm working on.
Yeah, and I also like to, outside of the, like in the canvas, I like to just write which page is which, just so, I don't know, I just know what's going on and it's not total chaos all the time.
That is the real thing. Not total chaos all the time.
You know, I'm just trying to keep it organized out here.
I appreciate that.
If I can just keep a file right, like, you know, that's one thing. My apartment's a nightmare, but my file.
Wow, that's amazing. Actually, I do something similar. I don't know, while you're working on setting some of that up. On my screen, I have like also like a similar setup where this way, like when it hand off files makes it so much easier. But I also find the one hard thing that I found with not having text like directly on an artboard is whenever I tend to move things around so much that if I have like then I start to put my titles now on artboards because then I can move everything around just because I am really bad. I tend to move things pretty often.
That's a really good idea.
So I put my stuff on like headers here. But now because there's the like collaborating feature where you can like share files and real time collaborate with other people, I tend to put like all these headers so that way people who come into the file actually know like what each of these sections are from like far away.
Do you ever leave notes in your file?
I definitely do, yeah. And these are like little notes right here, actually, like some little pieces. There's definitely, I feel like, times where I have to make notes to myself, and then sometimes I leave notes just for like other people. But I tend to also, when I'm working, sometimes I'll find that there's screens that I need to still work on that I haven't finished yet. And my trick is actually that I'll create just like a colored, like bright colored rectangle or something above the screen so that I know I still need to come back to.
I do that too.
Yeah, just
so
like
I have these red bars where I'm like, chaos zone, please don't look, like, still working on this. Or like, if I have revisions I need to make, I do that as like a note to myself.
Yeah, it's just a note for sure. Yeah, because I like checking off notes, so it's like when I'm done with it, I'm like, oh yeah, feels real good to delete that.
That one box was really holding me back.
Yeah, that's how I live my life, yeah. I put things there so I can delete them.
Yes.
So like he's like checking things off in a box.
I mean, yeah, same. All right, so still setting up the artboards, which like honestly, it's kind of like a meditative thing because it's like, oh, like this is what I have to do. Like this is my work zone. Like I don't know, I like it, but it's very boring. But sometimes you just need to do something boring to like just relax you.
I think if you get it in your habits too of like setting your files up nicely, it's a great habit to have. Some people like, I mean, I have to admit, I'm not the best about my layers, always naming my layering, because sometimes I just go in and I just start working and then I don't have that good habit. We've had people on the stream who are like, I watch them and I'm like, oh my gosh, like you are so good at naming everything. It's amazing. But I don't have all those good habits. So if you're just starting out, I would say like trying to create some good habits of like organizing your files and naming things is a good way to do
definitely.
it. I think other people will really appreciate it when they come into your file, because there's definitely times where you'll get handed a file and it's not so good.
I remember on a project, I spent like a week cleaning up someone's file. This was like when I was like a baby designer. And after that, I was like, oh, I'm never gonna like do that to anyone else. I'm gonna always keep my files good.
Yeah. Right, yeah, Phil said, I would really appreciate receiving a file with this level of organization. Yeah, people will appreciate having a nice, clean file.
I will shout out my coworker, Nick Sanchez. He actually just left to move to LA, whatever. But he was like the king of file organization, and I had him do like a demo for me of like how he did it, and I was like, I understand now. Thank you. Like this, you just blew my mind a lot. I'm gonna move. So something I also do in my file is I have this thing called a sketch pad. If I'm doing like versioning or if I'm trying to like figure something out and I'm not confident enough in it to like put it in my actual artboards, I like to play in this space. It's just really something for me to like personally do that so I don't feel as pressured like, oh, if I'm working in this main artboard space, it needs to be perfect and already figured out. So I like to organize my like web artboards like based on the sitemap structure, just so it also just helps you like visualize the flow for the user. So that's why I'm moving these two issue detail pages under the issue page, just kind of showing how the user would go from here to there. This isn't like, I don't know, you don't have to do this, but this is something that I like to do just to help like see the path. So up here we have homepage, issues, about, and then issue detail page for the text-based article, and then image-based article here. And then I have mobile next to it. So yeah. So before I dive in, I want to look at some references just to kind of, you know, see what's out there, see what's up. So I pulled up, I pulled up a few of my favorite sites that I like to pull references from, and they kind of range. So I think they range from like bespoke, like cool sites to like big production sites. So I like looking at awards. I'm a jury member for them, so I have to look at them anyway, but I just like seeing what's out there. These are very like big, fully bodied websites that are a good reference for like client work, but when I do personal work, it's kind of tough because I know there's a lot of dev hours in these, and that's not realistic for like my projects.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of interaction and
Yes.
motion and stuff, I feel like, with those sites as well.
Like they're super beautiful, but like I just need to be realistic on like my timeline and like what I'm making. So I like looking at Site Inspire. I think they're a really great reference. They also have a really nice way to filter things, so you can really get to the type of website that is related to what you are looking at. So I'm gonna quickly scroll through here and see if there's any cool ones that I like.
And let us know in the chat if they're like, do you guys, do any of you look at research inspirational sites, and what places do you go to do that? Sort of curious. You shared awards, and what is this that you're on now? Site Inspire. Yeah. Let us know if there are any other places that you guys look at.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's always great to like pull references from different places just so you don't see the same things over and over, and you're not like seeing the same things as everyone else over and over, so you just create more diversity in like work you're creating. So I just pulled a few that I like. Essence is obviously a fan favorite of mine. They do an amazing job with Editorial. Eric Hugh was their design director that did their rebrand, and I'm still obsessed with it even though it's been a few years. And then this one, I love how the nav works. I think this is a really fun way of doing it. I also like Voices, Creationalist. I think so this is like very much a branded site, but I think it's a really great way of like, they stepped away from their branding, and it looks different from their clothing brand and all that, but it still like relates back to who they are as a company. And I think they do really fun things with hover states, motion, and just general aesthetics. But yeah, I think these are a few good refs. Obviously, we can always pull back for more. Oh, and then I had The Great Discontent up because I love how they did their filtering system. I love how it's just a toggle between publish date and name and title. I think that's a very easy way to do it. And then I just like how it's a simple drop down for the different themes or the filters. And then this would lend well to mobile because it just stacks, and that's super convenient.
Yeah, I think it's super important to, constantly be looking at like different sites and the ways that people are designing, whether it's like the interactions or visual design, just to get a sense of like things that are trending or things that you think are really interesting ways that people have done things. Like you might really like that specific interaction. I also think that depending on like the project and where you are, sometimes it's hard to like look at too much inspiration before a project because you might just get that stuck in your head on things. So I think like if you're constantly kind of looking here and there, like it might not be too distracting, and sometimes it is helpful though to like look at, if you are designing, for an editorial, like what are other ways that other people who are doing editorials are like, how are they doing it? So there's kind of like that balance, I feel like, that we talk about sometimes of like, how much do I look at inspiration versus how much is it like over influencing what I'm about to do?
Yeah, so I just take quick screen caps of like moments that I really like, and then just kind of put them in my artboard to just look at and be inspired from. Like, this is really fun. I like that. Bloop. But yeah. And then Essence is just so good. I think this is a really great like hero moment and like really great moment with type, and then a nice way to get into the articles.
Nice, yeah. Anthony said they use Site Inspire as well. I know Sienna was saying, and I'll be back. I'm gonna go spend way too much time scrolling through Site Inspire. And yeah, to Tim's point, like if you only look at one thing, like Dribble, for example, wherever, you might only be, get stuck in one particular style
Yes.
or one area, so it's good to branch out. I also think it's great sometimes to see things that are just really bad, because it reminds you like the things that like you're like, that just really doesn't work, or like I really
Right.
don't like that experience. And I think that that's just as important as looking at all the like crazy cool random things that other people are working on too.
Yeah, and even if you don't directly reference it, it's just helpful to like see things and see what else is out there and like what you do like. So you can just kind of parse that out. So I like putting these in my file just kind of like as a collage almost.
It's like a mood board. But,
Yeah, it's like an interaction mood board. So let's put that in there. So let's get designing. I'm doing everything but that.
Now this is a large part of the process, right? Like
True.
setting things
It's
up
yeah. Cool. So I usually start with desktop unless there's a certain request to start with mobile. So let's get in here. Something what I love about XD is how it marks where the fold is, just so that helps you kind of figure out what space you can play in and like how much space you have. So I want to do, so I loaded in our colors in here just to make my life easier. So I'm going to I think I'm going to do the like off-white as the background color just to kind of make it feel less sterile and more warm. So I'm going to make the logo or the nav bar first. So I'm going to snag one of these bad boys and bring them around here. Let's see. Love it when it scales. I just like love it when like little things make my life easier so I don't have to like lose my mind a little bit every day. So I don't want the nav bar to be too big, and then I need to turn on my grid. Boop. Okay, so live, laugh, love the grid. I love how it's like pre-set up in here, just it makes my life so much easier because you gotta design on a grid. It's web. Please do that actually. Request. So we have our logo up here. Yeah, I like it up here. Let's make it a little bigger, because that's what everyone already says. And then let's make some nav items. So I'm just pulling my type from there. So I have issues. I'm not going to use expanded bold. I'm just going to use expanded regular. And then 45 is humongo. Let's like make it a nice 30 and see how we feel about that. And then put it over here loosely, and then I'm going to make about.
And so we have a question in the chat around like advice that you might give to someone who's starting to learn UI and UX design, like just sort of starting out.
Wow, welcome on your journey.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Welcome on your journey. So I would say definitely like read about it. I think there's a lot of good books, but also just Medium has a lot of great articles, and also just learning about like what is your taste in design and with websites. I think like a lot of my education with websites was when I was a teenager and making websites for my Neopets. And also I made like a Twilight fan site because like...
Classic.
Yeah, Team Edward. So I think like learning what draws you into like web or digital and like what interests you, and then trying to take a step back and understand like, oh, this is why I like this, or oh, this is why it works. And then also just like reading like the classic like product design books, and like, because UX kind of relates from product design, and understanding the history around it. And like, so like industrial design relates to it too. But also like Ellen Lupton is a great professor and author. She writes a lot of graphic design books, but also she writes a really good book called Type on Screen, which kind of relates to UX as well. And I think that's a great...
She has a lot of great books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So definitely like check her out. But yeah, I think start with reading and just kind of getting the general history, and even learning design history I think makes sense because UX didn't pop out of nowhere. It came from, classic design. So I think understanding that context as well is important.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of resources out there. I think the other good resources out there, like once you're, I also am like, jump in, like find like if you have the time, like a passion project, like a side thing, you know, that you can maybe start to get your hands on, that you can start to design. There's also, like for XD, we have daily creative challenges, so that's also a good way to kind of just dive in and start to create a little mini, you know, website or mobile feature that you can get feedback on. And I would definitely say like trying to make something and then testing it, like giving it to people and kind of having them, watching them like use it and seeing if the experience is working or not is really helpful too. So that's a great question. Thanks for sending it through the chat. I see some gasps on things that you've said. Team word. People are like, Neopets.
Hell yeah,
Gotta
dude.
love the Neopets.
So something I like to do is just group my nav bar into a group that's obvious, but also that just kind of creates like a bounding box of like where this nav bar is going to be and if anything's going to get too close to it.
The other great thing about in XD when you group things like that is with responsive resize. So on like the right-hand panel, you'll see there's now responsive resize. So depending on how you group your objects, and also if you manually go in, there's different ways that you can have them interact. But you can, when you, go to manipulate it, then it'll keep, you know, either a fixed width or fixed height based off of the settings that you put on it. So that helps when you're going from like an iPad or, you know, web screen and you go to mobile, or you're going from mobile to web. Just when you're resizing things, it's like very helpful. You don't have to go through and like adjust every little piece of padding.
So I'm just gonna snag this asset to just put in as the hero image and then dropping this in. So I wanna reference how we have things organized, or how we have things laid out here. Whoop. So let's just pull that here as an inspo in the inspo zone. So yeah, what I really like, oh, it ate that. Oops, okay. So, oh, that belongs somewhere else. So what I like about this is that I designed it. No, I'm kidding. But what I like is how it stretches out, or it expands out the logo, and then it neatly puts in the asset there and it doesn't feel out of place. So some assets I need, or not assets, but the content that I need for this page, going back to our sitemap, is I'm gonna have our tagline, which is this. And it's handy that I already have it dropped in here. So how I wanna lay it out is I want it to be above the fold. This homepage doesn't have a lot of content. Just thinking back to the sitemap that I put here, we just have the hero that includes the image, logo, and tagline, and then the sign up form, which is part of the footer. So I just want to keep it short and simple. So I'm just going to take this and ungroup it so I can play with it in here. This is my nightmare, but so this is way too big. So let's do maybe just 100 less. I don't want it to be green. I think I'm gonna want it to be black. What are you? You're green. I'm gonna make it black. I think like we'll deal with colors in a little bit.
Yeah, and I see you have some saved color palettes
Yes.
already, so that makes for like really easily making sure that you're staying to like your brand guidelines or whatever it is. Like if you're just picking a couple colors, adding it to the bottom of the color picker so that you can easily access it and always have the same one. I mean, you can use the eyedropper and kind of go and find it, but sometimes it's not the fastest. So that's a good tip in XD to just add it to your color palette.
Yeah, and it's like, you don't realize how much time you spend like trying to find it with the eyedropper, and then you're super zoomed in and you're like, this is chaos. So it's always helpful to like have it in there. And also like sometimes when you're dealing with colors, you might get the like shade that's like a little bit off, and then you're like, oh, wait, no, oh, that's not the, oh.
The worst is I tend to work from, Adobe's brand guidelines, we have quite a few different, like grays or blacks or off gray and like a little bit more off the gray. So it's just like like trying to pick which ones they are never works. It's just easier to have a whole panel. You have the assets panel available too in XD that is really great for like collecting all the colors you're gonna have or the typefaces, so you can easily also, like from the assets panel, if one of those colors changes, you can change it in the assets panel and it'll change throughout your entire document, which is super helpful. But yeah, Tim, thank you for sharing. Spectrum is Adobe's like visual brand guideline that we used, so that you can go ahead and check that out also. Kind of like how Google has their like material design, right? We have like all the buttons that we should use and kind of restrictions around that. That way, like everything visually looks really similar across all the flows and all the different teams.
So I'm dropping in the tagline. This is a little too big. I need to make that smaller. I might make these guys smaller too. Oops, this is 90. This is 30. Let's do a cool 26. And then that's too tight.
So Shin in the chat was wondering, you know, about like sharing like XD files and go back and kind of look at what has been worked on. I don't know if you're thinking at like the end of this, if you're gonna, you know, share some of the work or the files or anything.
Oh, maybe. I don't know how I would go about doing that. Have other...
You could do that on like Behance.
Oh, okay, cool.
You know, have some things that can be downloaded. So
Yeah.
maybe stay tuned. At the end of tomorrow, we'll see if we can get it up and maybe have that shared out.
Let's just, oh, we don't want that orph in there. Ooh, that rag's whack. Oh my gosh. Do you ever like hear your professors in your head like yelling at you sometimes when you design?
There are certain ones
Okay,
that
cool.
have scarred me for sure. No,
Okay, yeah.
No, yeah, I hear sometimes. I was about to say voices in my head, but that also sounded bad.
No, I definitely...
No, there's things that stick with you, which is good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and when you're talking about rag, for people who don't know, it's like the ending of like the fonts there. So different than rivers, which you see in the middle of text, rag is the end, and like visually just like how it's looking, like, yeah, it's all wonky or something, and trying to adjust that.
Yeah, I had a professor my senior year. Okay, this is like a dark story. Get ready, chat.
Get ready, world.
But
Oh, no.
I had a professor email me my senior year and be like, your typography's so bad, you're never gonna get a job.
Really?
Yeah.
And look at you now.
And I still think about it because I'm just like, oh my God, like, thank God I didn't listen to him. Like, who says that to like a 22-year-old? Like, how rude. But I always like laugh about it now because it's like, okay, like I have a job, like whatever.
Oh man.
But it's okay. Like I'm thriving now, so it's okay. Cool. So yeah, this is like, I wanted to like pull in that. I don't really like how this image is sitting. What can I do? I can make it a mask. I can mask it. Boop, 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 boop. I like, okay, so like secret about me. I'm like really bad with hotkeys because I just like sometimes don't know what my hands are doing. I don't know. I'm just like really bad with hotkeys. So I'm sorry, like this is a pro stream, but I'm not doing all these, you know, hotkeys and stuff. But like sometimes it's just nice to open up the nav and or the the little like helpful nav and be like, oh, that's where that is. But I feel like after like years and years with the program, I might get better with it. But like I'm still just like embarrassed to use hotkeys.
Let us know in the chat if you guys use some of the hotkeys, or if you even have, like, if you have a favorite or anything like that. I think that for me, like, there's certain ones that I definitely just saw other people using, was like, how did you do that? And like, they become, some of them have definitely become muscle memory for me. And I think like the nice thing is across products, like not just in XD, but across Adobe products, those shortcuts tend to be the same across them all. So like, once you have them, like it's great to have. But you don't need to memorize them. I think it's kind of everyone has their working style, but they can lead to like being pretty fast in the program.
I also feel like it depends on how my setup is. Like I brought my like keyboard from work because when I work with a keyboard that's separate from the trackpad, I like do it differently than with the trackpad, but like here we are. All right, so I'm happy with this. I'm happy. When I work with the grid up, sometimes I just turn it off real fast just to like see how it actually looks sans grid. So looking at it now, I feel like the logo is like way too big and it like conflicts with this. So I want to make these guys a little smaller.
We had someone, Jordan, who said that they love to see your work here, and when they started design school, they wrote about your portfolio work.
Oh my God.
You know that, but that's cool.
So stressful.
I like how I'm like, yes, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. That gives me, no, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
that
it's
gives
cool
me
you're
anxiety.
tuning in too.
Thank you. I hope you got a good grade.
Oh, I see Cody Brown. Hey, Cody. Just commented on like, love the typography choices so far. We've
Please
had Cody
email
on the
my
stream
professor
before.
and
Yeah, like, God, it all comes back to that. Wow, yeah.
scarred for life. No, I'm fine.
It all comes out on the stream, always. There's
Yeah.
always interesting secrets and moments
Oh my
that,
God,
no, just
so many
kidding.
secrets.
Oh no, I feel like we need to
No,
dive.
it's
Should I
okay.
dive more into
No,
that?
that's what my therapist is for. It's fine.
Did you know that that's actually what this is? No, like this is a
Is she
session.
watching? Oh man. Oh man.
That's interesting. Shin said in the chat that when they were a young designer, they used to print Adobe keyboard shortcuts and then place them besides their desk.
Oh, I love that.
That is one tactic to try and learn them. I think like one that I use quite a bit is like copying and pasting or creating new artboards, just because I tend to do that quite a bit. I remember back when, the one thing I love about XD is that when you copy and paste and then you paste it onto another artboard, it pastes in the exact same place that you had before, which I only caught on because back in the day, Illustrator, when you copy and paste, you had the specific paste in place. So because whenever you copy and pasted, it just landed like randomly somewhere, and it never like.
Oh my God! When you have to like zoom out and like look for it, and you spend like 5 minutes like hunting, and you're like, help, help, SOS, a flare, help me, I need this.
So that's one of those little small things that mean a lot to me now in like XD, when it's just like you copy and paste from one artboard and it lands exactly in the same place on your new artboard. Funny. And so a reminder, in about a little over 25 minutes, we have the portfolio submissions that we'll be doing. So Liz and myself will be able to review some of your portfolios. And in order to do that, you can head over to Discord, and in the portfolio review channel, you can send your portfolios in. And it's a great way to get feedback from everybody on the chat, from Liz and myself, and just get some visibility and some eyes on your portfolio.
Yeah, get them eyeballs on there.
Yeah, it's good to, I know it can be hard sometimes, I think, to share sometimes with other people. I know people who are, if you're just starting out, sometimes it can be nerve-wracking, but it's really good to get some feedback and eyes on your work.
So I am making the email sign-up form. So we use MailChimp, and what's really handy about it is you can style the form any way you want. So you can be totally chaotic, but we're not going to do that. We're going to make it a bit more usable. Maybe that's a little too small to be usable, but let's do.
And actually, talking back to, I know Michael in the chat was talking about asking about advice and tips for people who are just starting out. On my screen, I have up, and you can check out letsxd.com, but there's some great beginner pieces on here of challenges that you can do, but there's also learn content of prototyping in XD or component states, different pieces like that. And there's a bunch of different resources here that are good if you're just getting started, because Liz is designing in XD, and obviously, we're talking a little bit about pro tips, but there's a lot of different ways to learn other than watching the live streams. There's also content here, which I found super useful. And resources wise as well, there's a lot of plugins and things once you get more into your workflows in XD. So this site is kind of great to also check out like what's new, like with all the releases that we have. If you want to keep up with that, that is also a great place to kind of look and learn about. There's videos here for all the new features that are coming out.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was just at a conference and there was an XD table and I pretended like I didn't know XD and I just got a demo.
I feel like you would.
I was like, okay, hey, like what's up with this? It was really helpful. I learned actually what the most interesting thing I learned about is I learned about in components about making hover states for things. I thought that was really cool because then I started like playing with like motion just at like the demo table because I was like, oh, like, they obviously had like pre-made stuff and I was like, wait, this is really cool. I wouldn't have found this on my own.
Yeah, and Carol just asked in the chat, what's the best way of working with components and how to edit them to make their elements unique? And I think like, you know, you can use components for a lot of things, and I think like, you know, hover states and things like that are really helpful now that that feature is in. But there's also just like, you know, Liz is designing right now her header bar and like having, you know, the logo and on the different pieces there. I think like making things components is also useful when you know you're gonna have that across a lot of screens, and then later on in your design you might realize you want to change something about it. You can easily go into the component and change the original, and it'll change across everything. And that's like the beauty of it, is you're not then realizing, okay, I need to go to every artboard and like change that one piece of text or add this to it.
Something I like to do too is just get it in this like full screen mode and like pretend I'm seeing it in browser. I think something that happens a lot is because, I mean, I'm on my laptop right now, but at work I have a big monitor and we're so used to designing on big screens. And then when you're actually designing, or when you actually look at the site on a smaller screen, you're like, oh, everything is huge. Let's like tone it down a bit. So I just wanted to see like, is the email bar above the fold and how does it actually feel? Is it too close to it? And then like, how does the scrolling feel and like the size of everything?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I feel like when you're designing, you're zooming in a lot, you're zooming out, like you're losing that context sometimes. So like previewing is great. The other tip on that is Adobe XD does have the mobile app as well, which you can then just plug into your computer, and in real time, like when you're making adjustments, you can actually like scroll through on your phone. So again, like you can check like on mobile, it's like, oh, is this font gonna be too big? You can just, you know, go through and look on your phone and actually see it in context, which can be really helpful.
Yeah. Something I also like to do is like to kind of pressure test things. I like to actually look at real websites, and there's this plugin called Font Ninja. It's also like a fun way to see like what fonts are being used, but it's cool because you can see the like type size and the line height and all of that stuff. And it just helps me like see how other people are using type sizes on web, and also like when you shrink it down to mobile, it's nice to like see like, oh, okay, they made it 18 point on mobile, like cool, love it. So I think it's just like, it's a nice way to like real world pressure test different font sizes. Also, you can actually see how like small some font sizes are, and you're like, really? Like 10 point? What are we doing here? So, all right, so I'm working on the footer. So I'm gonna have our email, which is hello@desklunchnewsletter.com, because desklunch.com was taken. That's okay. Since this is a link, I'm gonna make it bold, and then add the social links. So we have a Twitter and a Instagram. I like how spell check is coming up, because like, boy, howdy, do I need it.
Well, I remember in like the early stages of XD, because obviously it's constantly being updated with like new features that are being asked about, or like just makes sense to continue to build out, or like cool new features. There was no spell check, and everyone was like, we need spell check, which was like a natural thing, but it just, every iteration keep building off of it. I see Shin was saying you can also check out what font is, whatfontis.com, and Chrome extension. I think like going in and inspecting sites, you can do that too. Another interesting piece to use is Adobe has the Capture app, and with Capture, let's see.
That's
I actually
for
have
colors.
a link up here. There's actually many services on Capture app. Yeah, the colors is a good one. I think it's probably one of the most used ones. So you can like capture different colors when you take a photo or importing a photo. But there's all of these services too, which include types. So you can actually take a photo and it basically will tell you what the font is or suggest similar fonts to that. Which is really helpful as well. You can create brushes, there's like looks, shapes, so you can actually capture like a sketch that you did or an illustration, and it'll turn it into vector for you. So you can like pull that into Illustrator or XD or whatever. I use that feature a lot too. I think the ones I use the most are probably shapes and the color feature. But patterns is cool too. You can create a lot of really cool patterns as well, just by like taking photos and like changing the way that it looks. Yeah, Shin, I love Adobe Capture. Nice. Yeah, actually one of the things I'm looking at right now is Capture right now is like an awesome service, but it's only like the app is like the only way you can use it. So I'm looking like for Adobe at like how we can take that service and make it accessible across all our different services. So like in desktop or like not just mobile, but like on web, like a lot of different places. So if you like it, stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get that service out to everybody.
Group. I'm gonna make my invisible box again to box out the footer.
Yeah, that's true. Tim mentioned Capture is integrated into Photoshop. So that's like the one I feel like app they're testing with right now that they have a integration with. And so since it's been used quite a bit, we're looking at like adding it to all the other products and pieces like that. So yeah, let us know in the chat if there's any other, like, what are your like favorite features across products, or in XD, do you have a favorite feature? Yeah.
Cool. So I feel like that's a solid homepage for right now. We have all the main components that were in the sitemap. So the nav, the hero with the logo, image, and tagline. And then we have the footer with submit, your email, and the different footer links. So we could either do mobile or, oh, sorry, I found something weird. Boop. Okay. Or we could do the issues page.
Let us know in the chat. Preference? Do you want to see design out the mobile next, or the issues page?
I'm going to start just saying, like, let us know in the chat when I'm just, like, confused of, like, what to do. Like,
it becomes a habit.
Yeah, just, like, I don't know. Just let me know, and just, like, alone in a coffee shop. Like, I don't know what I want.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, man.
We were saying, like, sometimes it's not the most natural to always be talking out loud also when you're designing about, like, what you're doing all the time. And I was saying it'd be funny if someone came by my desk and I was constantly just describing what I was doing out loud. It'd be the most annoying coworker to have. I'd be like, ah.
Yeah, I'm so used to just, like, having headphones in and being very silent. But that's how it be sometimes.
All right, Shin says mobile.
Okay.
So first one in, Shin, so we'll go with that.
What's cool about my cool design is that there's not a lot of nav items, so we don't have to have a nav that expands out. It can fit nicely there. So we just change this layout colors because the blue is a bit aggressive for me. Yeah, I agree with Oscar. It's real. Mobile is just downsizing it and slight adjustments. Yeah, and I'm excited because it's easy. No. So yeah, it's just gonna be like really simple, moving things over and just doing that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to remove it, ungroup, get me out of here. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a simpler version for mobile. So we have the logo, and then we have the 2 nav items coming in. These are big, so let's make them smaller. Let's zoom in. Yeah, you don't need to do anything too crazy.
Hi Munir, thanks for joining us in the chat. Since you're just joining, and I'm sure we've had some other people joining in as well, Liz is designing in Adobe XD right now, taking a newsletter, Editorial, that she is a co-founder of, and thinking about how she would design out a website for that content. And it's called Desk Lunch.
Desk lunch, the best meal of the day. No.
I feel like you just started to kind of do a theme song thing, and I kind of saw you going like having a little tune to go along with it, and you always like whoop. So I kind of I like chuckled to myself because I could just imagine it being like desk lunch,
Desk
boop,
lunch.
boop, boop, boop.
Don't forget to get your meal. No, no, this is like me at home when I'm like doing like cleaning and just doing like minor tasks. So my boyfriend's like, please, 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 please don't. Let's beef up these boys over here.
Well, so it's interesting too because Oscar had said, right, that it felt like mobile would just be downsizing and slight adjustments, which is true. But there's also other interactions that you'll have on mobile, like because things are smaller, like the menu might be different, right? You might only show the logo and then have like a hamburger. I can really speak today. Hamburger menu, which would then slide over, right, and then you'd have all of your nav items. So there's actually like other ways that you can really adjust and get crafty with it. But yeah, I mean, naturally things are mainly just kind of scaled down or moved over with slight adjustments.
I think like the wildest page to do on mobile will be the issues page because there's a lot of text and just a lot of scrolling, and like how do you make that more accessible and just not like a headache to interact with. But we'll get there when we get there. So, wow, this doesn't work. No, let's see. How is best to do this? I might do something like just change the layout slightly because there's no way that like this text will live nicely next to here. Also, that would not be an enjoyable like reading experience. So like just maybe treating it just like how it is in the asset like this and kind of tightening it up a little bit. And then including this below and just treating it as 2 separate things. Or even just stacking it, which is like the obvious mobile excuse, like result, but that just doesn't feel as good and I'm not here for that. So we're gonna just undo that real fast.
Paco, did you see the chat? I'm scared to respond to zombie baby items. I laugh because we talked about this a little bit, that there have been previous pranks on the live stream. And,
okay.
Zombie baby was a thing that happened to me. So now Paco's responding, oh no. We spiral quickly. You didn't forget, Paco, about zombie baby. I knew that Monier on the chat, I recognized your name, and now I know why, because it always brings up traumatizing times.
What, was there an actual zombie baby?
On the screen, yeah.
Oh.
It was literally, well, no, there was actually a physical one
Oh.
from New York that was sent into the office that came in. And then it became a thing that traumatized us on the live stream as well.
Like a haunted doll situation? or-
Everything about it just gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't even know what it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at the haunted doll
I'm already gonna say no, but
on eBay? Have you ever searched
no.
haunted?
I'm not good with scary things. I don't like scary things.
I mean, but is it real? It's on eBay, like, you know.
I don't even want to think about it.
Well,
Is it a real? So it's a real doll. Are you saying that people say it's haunted, or
Well,
it
like,
just
there's
looks
multiple
creepy?
dolls. Like, if you search haunted doll on eBay, it's people being like, this is Bum Bum, and he's a magical doll, and he will heal you.
Oh, geez, oh, Pete. Yeah, no, not for me.
So yeah, I definitely recommend that. You know, if you're just like,
Recommend it.
I mean, if you're just
Sounds
like popping open a
awful.
bottle of wine and you're like, oh, what's going on? The
Not
internet?
how I'm spending my Saturday night.
You know, some of us.
For some people, yeah, there you go. I can't believe you knew that that was a thing that existed, though.
One of my podcasts I like, they always do a segment on it, and it's deeply enjoyable because it's ridiculous. Well, because like you can't say you're selling magical things on eBay like that because you can't. So in the terms and conditions, or always in like the bio, it's like Bum Bum will heal you and do this stuff, and then it'll be like a copy and paste of like, this isn't a magical item. Don't take it seriously. This is a joke. And then it's like, I'm sorry. Like, so are you trying to tell me to like buy this magical doll, but also you're like saying it's fake? Like, I
What's
want it,
real?
Yeah, I want it to cure my anxiety. Like, come on.
I'm like now nervous that you've like bought one of these on eBay. Like, is it here? Like that would, I'm like starting to get nervous.
Just sweating.
I'm like, oh, it's getting warm in here. Very scary. Actually, shouldn't that's a good idea? We should do a scary. Well, no, I say that's a good idea, and then I automatically think it's not a good idea. But Shim was saying do a scary design challenge, designing a web/mobile UI, like that scares. It's an interesting challenge, though.
It's just like pop-ups that come out at different
Constant
times.
pop-ups, yeah.
Yeah, but like they have like scary imagery. Well, do you remember those old
I like
sites on those old websites where it's like, look at this picture for 5 seconds, and you'll look, and then it'll change to something scary?
Well, not something scary. I've done like the
Oh.
ones where you look at it and it, like and then all of a sudden it starts like spinning or like
no.
doing like illusion type
I've done
things.
like
This scary
It's
thing.
very like Newgrounds. Like, remember that? Like all those animations and stuff on there.
I stay away from all.
Okay. Well. Okay. Question: do you always use 12 columns for desktop, website, and 4 columns for mobile? Okay, so that totally depends on the dev environment that you're making it in. So sometimes when you work with certain clients, they already have a system set up and you need to work with that. Typically, I do like using 12 for desktop. Actually, really, for mobile, I use 2, but it kind of like, typically on mobile, actually, let me go into here. Sidetrack. Okay, so remember how I was talking about this cool doc I made? I made a UX kit. So something that my previous coworker made that I still love to this day is this template. These are like a different system. These are a lot more columns, but it's a really great one to use from. So like this is an example of like if we're doing a very experiential site and we needed something to be more full bleed, then we would use a 24 column like here, and it's more expansive, not expensive. And then so we would just talk to the devs before and figure out if that's the right environment. But for this one, I think 12 columns is fine since we don't have a lot of content. We don't need to do anything crazy. And then, like I said, on mobile, I actually typically use 2, but the 2 I would use are these smushed together. So this is just adding another gutter, which is fine, or another just like breakpoint. But that's fine. It really depends on what dev system you want to use. So, but these are like the traditional ones, and I think they are great.
Yeah, that was a good question. Thanks for sending that in.
So I really don't like how this is looking on mobile. So I think what I might do is remove the logo since the logo is so close here, and then just open up with the image, and then have the info text below. So just doing a slight change between desktop and mobile, which is, like, chill. because then you can see we have where the fold is or where the screen size hits, and you'll be able to see the logo, the image, and the text all on the same screen. So it kind of breaks up the issue of like what am I looking at, why am I here, what's going on, which are all questions I ask when I go to a website. I don't. So that feels nice. Maybe let's change the hierarchy.
I think the nice thing about watching like you work and like watching other people work and seeing their process is, especially for those of you like just starting out, is you'll realize like you're gonna try a lot of iterations of things to see like, does this look good, or like actually this might be better. Some people can just like change it on the fly. Sometimes you might have like a mobile screen and then like copy, and so you can see them side by side and kind of decide like which of these looks better. So you might not just design it once and like get it right the first time and think this is perfect. There's definitely a lot of iteration that you'll end up doing, just kind of like feeling it out. So you'll see like Liz readjusting everything and kind of moving the segments around.
Yeah, definitely undo is your best friend. I mean, like, and that's kind of goes back to, because I'm like doing this kind of quickly, I'm not doing it, but like having the sketch pad in your doc and just kind of going there to like play with things and like suss things out before you make it real. Like I might just, to make the mobile version of the nav, or the footer I mean, I might do that here, just turn that off. And then disconnect it. And then, what do I want? What do I want? I want to just make a rectangle the size of the artboard, and then make it in here. Oops. So I can just play with different ways on how to make the footer for mobile, and I feel less precious because I'm not in my actual work artboard, but I'm in this like cool zone that I made for myself. So I just want to check on the type size. I made the nav items. Okay, we're at 18. So I want the footer items to be in the same universe. So let's bring it down from 22 to 18. Okay.
So Phil's wondering in the chat, is it frowned upon to have text expand below the fold to entice the user to scroll?
Okay, so let's talk about the fold for a second. Oh God. So if you remember, I don't know if people remember or if I'm old, but Huge came out with a really good article back in like 2014, 2013 called Everybody Scrolls, and it's this huge research report that they did to talk about like, do people scroll? Because this was like very early on in like web, where like people didn't know if people scrolled. And basically the research shows that like people do scroll. I think like, to answer your exact question, is it frowned upon to have text expand below the field to entice you to scroll? I think it's fine. I think you just need to do it and make it make sense. So do it in a smart way. Like don't try to like scrunch up all the text right before so then people just see it. But I think like if it makes sense with the flow of the site, go for it.
Yeah, that's good advice. And a very good question. And I just want to point out that if you haven't sent your portfolio in to get feedback throughout the week, people will be giving portfolio reviews. We're going to be doing that in just under 2 minutes. So you can head over to Discord and send that through in the portfolio review channel.
I think like something else about the fold too, sorry, I'm just gonna like keep rambling, is like there are so many screen sizes, so like the fold isn't consistent between all screen sizes, so you can never truly know where the fold is. So I think like don't design just for that. I think like you notice that I was playing around with like where should the email submission live, because like obviously I don't want it too hidden, but I think like just having it fit in context with this will make sense to the user regardless of the screen size. So yeah.
That's true. You never know exactly what people's browsers are going to be at. So you don't know like every time it's not like this is exactly where, and when everyone sees it, where the fold's going to be. But obviously it comes into play like when you're talking about the fold in general, and like if you do have I think, some big CTA, some big call to action that you want people to do, like you don't want to hide it totally below. So I think that's like the main reason it's talked about in design is, is it above, is it below? Like what's the general hierarchy of just like things that you want to have on the page? And the fold is important to like note in that regard. I like Brett's comment, the fold doesn't exist.
Okay, this is cute. This is cute. This is fun. We're having fun. Okay, so let's make this submission. So I'm gonna just ungroup it. I just like need to ungroup things when I work with it, just because I don't know. It stresses me out when it's all there. I just want to touch everything individually, even though you can easily do that. So I'm gonna make this here. So I'm gonna do the enter bar full width, the email submission bar full width, so it's easy for people to select it and enter their email, and so they can see it in full, in fullness, and it's how it looks.
Yeah.
And then make this a little bit smaller. And let's just center it.
Cool. So I will point out we are at the time where we're going to head over to a different universe where we're going to be reviewing the portfolio submissions. So right now, let's take a minute. We're going to be right back and we'll head into the portfolio reviews.
Whoa!
And we're back in space. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and check out some people's portfolios. I don't know, like if you realize, but like the audio sounds super wonky in these space helmets if you talk too much. Okay. All right, so I'm like every time I put these on, it's a little odd. All right, so I have up on my screen, which, by the way, I got traumatized by, oh, it's gone. Okay. there was a zombie baby reference that scared me when I went to go look at this. So, Paco, whatever, on the side.
That was not me.
It wasn't you?
No, that has to be
Who?
Tim. Tim or what?
Him. Okay. Well, I thought it was you, which is why I made a note earlier. All right, so we have, I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher your name. I'll do my best, but Shafayat. We have your portfolio that we're going to go ahead and take a look at on Behance. We have, let's see, I like how you have like some information here about yourself, a UI UX designer, interactive prototyping, UX research, and it looks like you're in Bangladesh. We have some about me stuff. Let's see, and we have a bunch of work over here. Do you have a piece that you want to take a look at first? We can dive into some of this.
Okay, let's look at. I'm gonna look at your screen because I can actually see it.
Yeah.
Let's look at that one. The pink website.
Okay.
Cool. So we got a landing page.
Vision things and Internet of Things. I mean, I'd have to say, like, the first thing that just catches my eyes, I think, like, visually, everything is kind of looking beautiful, like, even with, like, the thumbnails and everything. My audio is crazy, so I could barely hear myself speak in my helmet, so I'm going to take that off for a second, even though we're still in space. All right, so going through Internet of Things. I'm curious, like, I wonder if you did the illustrations yourself. Like, there's a lot of, like, little details, which I think is nice in tying this all together.
I like the use of, like, color blocking the page. I think that's nice to give some, like, visual change to the user as they're scrolling, because this is, like, a bit of a long scroll, so it's just nice to, like, break it up.
Yeah, I think visually it's really interesting. I think the one thing I was wondering when I first came here is just, like, what the project was, like what it
Yeah.
was I was kind of looking at. Like there's not really a description of that until I kind of get a little bit further. I've kind of realized as I've read through this.
Oh, can you scroll up?
Yep.
Oh, some of your copy is like going off into the illustrations, so just like watch out, alert. But also, yeah, I feel like the type size is a little small for desktop because this looks like desktop. And just kind of like beef it up a little bit. Like I know you're trying to show hierarchy of like a headline versus body copy, but the body copy comes off really small. So just kind of making that a little bit bigger. But yeah.
I think it's nice to see also, like, it looks like there might be
Language,
some
yeah.
languages, like, that you might be changing over right now. It's in English, but you might be able to click on that and change to something else. So I like the nod to that. And I think, like, visually, like, having this hairline is kind of in your visual style, too. So I feel like you have, like, a consistent kind of color palette that you're working off of, some, like, visual elements, which I think is working really well also. Cool. Let's look at another one of these projects. Maybe a mobile piece
Sure.
here. Okay. Let's check this one out. So we have cryptocurrency app UI.
I like the colors. I feel like a lot of tech or a lot of fintech stuff, like they used a lot of the same colors. So it's nice to see like something that's a little bit different and doesn't just kind of blend into the masses of like Robinhood and Stash and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing that you did is like previewing the design like on an actual screen and then also calling out like a couple specific screens to like look at it a bit more detail. I think the one thing is like you do have, which makes sense, right? Like having received versus sent being like a green and a red because those are like classic colors for like things that are like good or like, you know, versus like an error or something like that, or it's like negative. But I think like thinking through, you do have like this visual like gradient color palette going on in the background. So kind of figuring out when that might clash with it or if it like is working well. I think like it's pretty clean, so I think you can kind of get away with that, which is nice. But again, I do agree, like some of this might be small, like some of these numbers if you were to preview it on a phone. So I'd be curious, like if you look at it on the phone, like if those numbers are still kind of visible or a little bit too small. But I think your designs are really clean. Like there's some nice type variation. I think like you're using like space really nice too. Like I think like creating and not like over complicating by putting too much on each screen is really nice. So it's still like has a lot of room to kind of breathe, I feel like.
Yeah, and I like the like organic shapes that are coming through. That just
Yeah.
feels really nice compared to like the very clean cut lines that you have going on there. And I like the use of like using the half or the quarter circle to like use as like a button, and it feels very much like you're entering another color space. I think that's fun.
Totally. Yeah, I wonder how well it's working here. I definitely like
Yeah.
it down here, but I feel like, I know you had to change that color. I almost think actual white I think it's a little bit of a off-white, like it's
Yeah.
still like light. I just think like having a little bit more contrast might be nice. But I mean, you got it pretty close. I might even bump it up a little higher so there's more space between here. But I agree. I think also just as a portfolio, like when you're posting it, it's nice how you made like the background again, like kind of match a little bit of your design, but it's not like too much noise. So that looks really nice too. All right, let's look at, I'm curious, I want to look at another project. Let's get out of here. All right, preferences. Which one do you want to look at next?
Ooh, let's look at that one.
I know, that one's
Yeah, I like
calling
the
to me too.
illustrations.
Yeah. I think the illustrations are something that are like really strong in
Yeah.
a lot of your work, even in the thumbnails.
Cool.
And you do have that organic kind of style across. I feel like they're starting to notice of like using the slashes here, or like your edges aren't always like really straight, which I think is cool. I also like the pagination
Yeah.
down here, how that you have like the one piece that isn't just a circle, but like I assume the one that you're on, although I would think if these are all three of your screens, maybe the second one
Moving to
here,
the
that would
next.
be the one that would be next, and then like the third one would have the large one here, but just like minor detail. But But I like how you're like doing a variation on like the typical pagination is cool. Nice. But yeah, I think because you only have this one piece, like this one screen here, I would maybe, the little details then I think are important. So maybe I would maybe tweak that a little bit really fast. But it looks good.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe, let's look at this one because it looks a little bit different. Yeah, and I think on your portfolio, I think there's a varying way on like Behance that I've seen people really post their portfolios. I think right now like you're really letting like the work just totally speak for itself, which I think is one way to do it. I also think there is a little bit of sometimes description so that people know like kind of what the thing is they're looking at. It can be helpful just because otherwise I'm like, yeah, this looks beautiful, but I don't really have any context to put it around of like just generally like what you were designing for or something like that. Also, sometimes it's nice to see like process a little bit. Like Liz has been like showing us like sketches or things like that. I wouldn't go like crazy with it and show a ton of stuff, but I think some people do like to see sometimes on portfolios like what's your process? Like do you sketch or just like what was your thinking around it a little bit?
Definitely.
Okay.
Wow, we got a lot of info going on here.
Crypto. You have the Bitcoin stuff. Again, I think it's super cool. I think the way that you're using like a very colorful palette. I would be careful again with just like readability, like legibility of like white on some of this, like the contrast. Even on my computer, like it's a little hard to read against the light colors down here. So that might be something to, I would maybe use the like dark text color instead of white on it, like using the grays that you have.
Yeah, I would love to see like a sketch of like how you got here and like what you deemed like the most important, like why you thought that this chart was the most important instead of like your wallet, for example. I don't know anything about Bitcoin, so but like I just think like just understanding your thinking of like why today's activity has a higher hierarchy than some other items.
Otherwise, again, like I think that everything is really clean, like visually. I like am drawn to like a lot of these thumbnails also. I think like you picked a lot of like beautiful moments or like screens that would capture someone to like want to look further into your portfolio. Let's look at this, like icons. I think you also have like a breadth of work, which is nice too. Like we've seen there's some icon work, there's some mobile screens, you just had like a dashboard. So there's like variation too. And like I think when it comes to like portfolios, like it also like you want to put on your portfolio the type of work that you want to get. So not just like showing this like everything across the board unless that's all the stuff like you definitely want to get work for and want to do. But it is nice to see like the variation of like work that you have so like people can see like the skill sets that you have in there. Again, like the gradient stuff. I do love a good gradient, so. I don't know if you, what you're using to make this, but when it comes to gradients too, if you check out in Illustrator, there's a new type of gradient called freeform gradients, which actually allows, versus like the typical, you have like radial gradients and all of that. Freeform gradients, you can add multiple points, like a ton of points, and like move them around.
It's so much fun.
Oh, it's mesmerizing. I can't get enough of it. Cool. Any other feedback you have for Shafayat on their portfolio?
Yeah, just like generally adding more context to your projects and maybe showing more of your process and then just doing a write-up on why you did it and what you want to get out of it.
Well, yeah, and I think the About Me section, it's nice that you've written like a little bit about yourself and kind of, again, like you said, less is more. And I think in your work, like you do have a lot of good like white space use and kind of the general like hierarchy of things, like not putting too much on a page, which is really nice. So awesome work. Thank you for sharing your portfolio with us and with everybody to get some work. So let's take a look at, we have one more we're going to look at, which is from Gilbert. So again, I think just having just come from the other portfolio, I would say take advantage again, like on this left-hand side, like build that out and start to add like a little bit about yourself and kind of like the type of work you do or the type of work you're interested in doing. But let's take a look at some of these projects. We'll just start from the beginning. So the last time I'm just kind of like clicking all over the place. Okay, so we have a messaging app. Anonymous. Ask any question anonymously. Ooh, okay. I'm like, cool. Sneaky. Start here. Okay, so we have a couple screens. Oh, so we have a prototype probably video here. Let's take a look. I think that it's awesome that you added like a video so we could see like your thinking of the actual experience and like all the little nuances and the interactions, like animations that you have between screens. Obviously, though, I think you'll notice I had to, adjust my screen just because the video was so large. So I'd try and figure out how to maybe make that smaller if possible. Nice. Okay, I'm going to bring this back to 100%. Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, I think what's nice about this is having that video is super interesting to then see like all of the transitions and like the actual way that you were thinking about the experience of like clicking back and mainly for like if you do like animations, I feel like is a good way to show that off. I think that's super smooth. I think like it's definitely more monotone, especially having come from something that had like a lot of color. And I'm not saying you have to go with like a ton of colors, but I think that can also help with like visual hierarchy of like what things are on the page and like where I should look. Just because you only have like the two, I'm like trying to count. Like you have kind of this dark purple and then white that you're using. So I think there's definitely room to add to the color palette as well. But I do like how you also kind of had this here. It was very catchy to be like, ask any question anonymously, right? Like it's it's interesting. And the only other thing I would wonder is like with the start here, it's really low on the bottom of the page. I would think about like when you're holding the phone, like where people's thumb, like what's in reach with kind of where they want to hit it. It's like the very bottom is a little bit of an odd area to tap. So I might consider that too a little bit more. Awesome. Let's take a look at Tune Play. Looks like some music here. Yeah, some albums and artists, and then songs.
Okay.
And I think like classic, like the background having kind of like the nod to like the waves. I definitely knew right away we were looking at something with like audio aspect to it.
It looks like you can see the lyrics as they're playing.
Oh yeah, here. So you definitely have, I think, a style in like your portfolio, which I also think is nice. Like you consistently have like the top piece, which kind of has like a little title or like mini catch thing and a couple screens. And then you start to show like individual screens off of that. I would almost even filter some of this down because like between these two at least, like they look pretty similar. Like the first two of these are the same and only, I mean, this one looks still similar to this. So I would just think about like, you could probably simplify a little bit and just like you could show these four and maybe one other screen or two, or you might not even need this one for us to get the gist of it.
Yeah, and since it looks like you just have like default copy in there, it's hard to kind of parse what I'm looking at a little bit. Besides, like it says now playing, so you kind of have a general idea, but adding like real content would help a lot.
Yeah. But it's nice, like I've definitely seen people pull out like, here's the colors that I used or like the font that I used. So I think that's nice in a portfolio as well. But I think like, cause these, I feel like you actually start to pull in like the artwork, like album covers and stuff. And I think that like adds a lot to it. So I think like, yeah, to Liz's point, like seeing where you could do that in other places to make it a little bit more realistic feeling. Nice. Should we look at another project?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you have like a lot of variation, I feel like, already in these. So we have coworker seat reserve. Ooh. Okay. Reserve a seat here. I wonder if what you're reserving it for. I mean, for your coworkers?
Yeah.
It's in the name. All right, I'm gonna zoom out so we can take a look at the video. So it's like a seat selector, kind of like in the movie theaters. You can go ahead and reserve them.
Cool.
Nice. It's interesting to see like layouts and stuff like that. I'd be curious like if the coloring of things has meaning, because just I know like thinking about the way that other places have seat reservations, like some are unavailable versus like some are like taken, and having a cue to that might be helpful as well, like a little guide or a key to that. Ooh, I forgot. I was like, what just happened? I broke your whole thing. Yeah, so I think maybe we'll call it there because we can't look at your entire portfolio. But any thoughts on Gilbert's?
Yeah, I mean,
portfolio?
again, just like I like how you show some of the style guides and the colors. So just like adding more about maybe you're thinking of why you picked certain colors and certain typefaces, and also just making sure that your type size doesn't get too small, especially these are mobile screens too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is an awesome start. I think, like, again, you can think about, when to filter out certain screens. Like, you don't have to show everything, but you can definitely show, like, a breadth of kind of, like, your favorite screens. And then if you do have, like, a click-through video, I think that especially when I think it was really useful for, like, some of the transitions, and seeing some of that is really nice. Yay. Okay, so thank you, Gilbert, for sharing your portfolio as well. Through the week, if you're looking for feedback, go ahead and send your portfolios over to the Discord channel, and you'll get feedback from everybody. Hopefully, sometime on the stream, we'll be like picking more portfolios, and you can get more feedback from people. Okay, so with that, we can head back over, and maybe you want to recap a little bit of like where you are, what we've kind of gone through a bit today.
Where am I? So we went through what the project brief was. We made a sitemap, and then we made a desktop homepage, and we are finishing up the mobile homepage. So all that's really left is getting the footer set for mobile. And what's nice is once we get the footer set for mobile, we'll be able to use it for all the pages. So it's like one and done. So then what's left is the issues page with the thumbnails, detail pages, and the about page. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, Liz has gone through today from like, we looked at your sketch thinking of like how you process like just what's going to be on every single page and like the layout of all of that. And then I think like it's interesting to see you go through not just from like sketching right away, but really thinking through like the flow and like the content of everything. And then if you want to go back to your other file too, maybe talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so my UX kit. So yeah, you can see like different styles of sitemaps that I've done. This is something that my coworker Esther made for a client, which I really like because it's like super high level, and it's just really blocking out the page and then a short description of the page. So that's actually really good for more experiential sites where it's less like what literally is on it, but just kind of what the general description is of them. And also just seeing pages like as rectangles is a nice way to itemize it and feel like how many that there are instead of just seeing a simple view like this. And then some user flow templates, and then some different wires that I've made throughout the years. And sometimes I just keep them. And also these are on my site, so it's not like they're anything different. But what I like to do is, like if I've made one thing once, I like to have a version of it somewhere else, so I don't have to always make a different like carousel that has like the numbers along the side. This is so old, but like, instead of like redoing it, just having it all in one place, like, okay, on desktop, this is how this carousel looks, and then how it folds down to mobile. So then if I do have a site that has something similar, I already have it done.
Nice, yeah, and I feel like you end up pulling from like a lot of files over time. So like
Oh,
staying
totally.
organized and like saving your work is super important.
Like for this pet adoption thing I made years ago, like this is a thumbnail for a pet, so like having the tags and stuff and just seeing it like once it's already done, and then I can switch it out if we did something for like hotels and just instead of a Zoe, it's like Hotel Zoe. And also, like, this is silly, but like having pre-made footers is really helpful, especially when you have a lot of content in the footers. It's just nice to already see how that's blocked out, so you don't have to redo it every time. So yeah, so this is like how I treat my UX kit. I think another one that I always like to remember is like FAQ pages, which is like kind of silly, but like it's the same thing every time, so you don't need to redo it. So like just create one drawer once and then you have it forever.
Yeah, so it's been great. Well, we've gone through a bit of Liz's process today, from sketch to heading into Adobe XD and starting to do those wireframes. Liz will be back with us again tomorrow, same time, 12 to 2, and so make sure that you tune in, and she'll be taking her designs even further. We'll get into maybe some visual design, like bring in some colors, some font choices a little bit more, and maybe starting to hook some things up and prototyping.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure that you stay tuned for all the rest of the agenda that we have on Adobe Live today. Thanks.
Bye.